Okay, so then, I know that, okay, let's talk about Cindy for a minute. So you met Cindy in high school.
I met Cindy September 1966. I had graduated high school. She was still in.
Okay, so then.
At the Scarpville Harvest Festival is where I met her.
Okay, and then you guys dated,
We dated.
and at some point you asked her to marry you.
No.
No? Okay, tell me the story.
I got drafted
Okay,
about 6 months or so after we started dating. And I never asked her to marry me then.
okay,
But I did give her an engagement ring.
okay.
But about 6 months or so after I was over there, she gave the ring back to my mother because my friends were spying on her, she said, which was probably true. Everywhere she went, she said, "Oh, you're Fred's girlfriend, aren't you?" And she'd say, yeah, well, we'll be here, we're watching you, and she was so young.
Yeah. Well, and what she had told me is that her friends were like, "Do you really want to be strapped down?"
Yeah, exactly. That
Which
was part of
makes
it.
sense.
Absolutely. I mean, she was still in high school.
Yeah.
And I know she wanted to travel. Like the minute she got out of high school, she planned on going.
Yep.
Which she did.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, California, Aruba, Australia.
Wow.
I mean, she went everywhere.
So then you met someone and you did marry someone.
Yes, that happened in 1976, my first wife.
Okay, what was her name?
Virginia.
And
I met her at Fort Campbell, Kentucky when I was in the 101st Airborne.
Okay.
Stationed there.
And then you guys had 2 children?
We have 2, Fred Reeder,
Mm-hmm.
the 5th,
Yep.
and Jillian.
Okay.
One was born in 1986, one was born in 89.
And then how long were you guys married?
Well, 76 to 2007.
Okay, so quite
Well,
a while.
keep in mind though, it was longer than that. It was like 08 or 09 because the divorce went on for close to 4 years. She wouldn't sign the papers, and it actually cost her a lot of money by not taking what Cindy and I initially offered her.
So, in between time, when did you meet Cindy again?
May of 06.
Okay. So, how was that reunion? I mean,
Well, the reunion was excellent. I actually had left my first wife
Oh yeah.
and was on my way back to Michigan.
Uh-huh.
I was going to move in and live with my sister a few days, a week, 10, whatever, until I could find a place to live. And so I called Cindy, and believe it or not, her mother answered the phone. Now, keep in mind, this is 40 years later, give or take a day. And I said, "Ethel, is Cindy home? Is this Fred Reeder?" I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" "Oh," she said, "I know." And Cindy and I talked, and actually we talked the whole time I was on the road driving from Pennsylvania. And yeah, she said, "Just move in here with me."
And that was that. And then you got married? And...
Well, yeah, then I came back home because I had to go back. Actually, that's out of sequence because I actually came home for my mother's funeral about a year before that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I kind of got back, whatever. But then I decided to come back and I was going to live with my sister. And then Cindy said, "Yeah, come on. Yeah, it's ridiculous,
Well, how did you figure out?
I just called her one
You just
day.
happened to call up. Okay.
I just had, I don't know if it's ever happened to anybody else, but I woke up one day and I missed her. And so I called her.
Aw, I love that story. Okay, so you went to Mason County Central, and then you said you were at a community college.
Yes.
But then I also know that you did something in Michigan State.
Yes.
So how did that work?
I went there for 2 years.
And how'd you pay for that?
The Veterans Administration.
Okay, so
Department of Defense paid for it.
Did you go to the community college was that before or
I
after?
paid for that.
Okay.
Well, my dad.
And then you got drafted.
Yes.
And how did the drafting work? Did you just go down, register as selective services, and then they just called
Well,
you?
On your 18th birthday, you have to register.
Right.
So I didn't get drafted till I was 20. So I'd been out of school
2 years.
60, half of 65 and all of 66. And then I got drafted, and I had just turned 20 after I went in.
So when people say they got drafted, does that mean you got a letter in the mail?
I sure did.
You got a letter, okay.
It was 2 weeks before Christmas, 1966.
And it just said, we want you to come serve in the military? Or you were
It
ordered?
said, congratulations, you have been selected, and of course, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And I had to report to Detroit on the 6th of January.
So you knew that there was an option, there could be a possibility that you would be drafted. That was always out there.
It's always there.
So
yeah.
how did you feel when you got that letter?
I don't think it hit me for a while till, near Christmas. I mean, it was a few weeks before Christmas, but yeah, I was dating Cindy and we were having a good old time. And of course, I had her there at Christmas with me in Scottville at our house and at my aunt and uncle's house for Christmas Eve. And then it really dawned on me because New Year's was around the corner and I was going to be leaving. And, it sunk in pretty hard then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to Detroit, did everything, got signed, delivered, whatever you want to call it. And I ended up in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
We call that Fort Lost in the Woods. Did they call that?
Fort Lost in the Woods. Yes, they did. And every word's true.
I never had the opportunity to go there.
We took the train from Detroit to there, and took all night and half another day or whatever it was.
So you did your basic training there, and then what about we did an advanced individual training.
That's what I did.
For your MOS.
And that was at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay.
And 90 degrees. And went to a place called Tigerland, which is where they trained people to go to Vietnam with the snakes and the bugs and everything else you can find that is not good for humans. Mm-hmm. And so I got out of there and I come home here on Mother's Day, 67. And it was snowing. And I was wearing a short sleeve shirt, all suntanned, looking really cool. And looked out the window and whoops. And thank God my mother, being my mother, had a nice warm jacket and everything for me, my old school coat or whatever it was.
And you were on leave at that time?
I had 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was home for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down to, first we had a big meal out there at Muskegon Airport. And then the next day, my dad took me to Urca Chevrolet in Scottville. And we went in and he bought me a brand new 1967 Buick Riviera for the 2 weeks I was going to be home. and it was never driven after I left for Vietnam. Parked it in the driveway. Well, not in the driveway, in the garage.
Right.
And the only thing he ever did with that car was back it in and out, let it run just to keep the tires from whatever.
Yeah.
And when I got home, that car was just like it was the day I left it, with the same amount of miles on it. And so then we went down and we traded, when I got back from Vietnam, we took it down and traded it in. And, I got a new wheels.
Awesome.
I'll never forget that.
That's pretty special.
2-door Buick Riviera. That was a high-end car.
Yeah.
Well, you know that.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah. And just drove it right off I got a picture of it.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. It's handy. I'll show you after we're done.
Okay.
Where they put it in the paper. It was in the Lenny Daily News when we bought it.
Oh, it was a big deal thing.
Well, it still is for her.
Yeah.
They still put pictures in.
Oh, yes, they do. You're right. They
Once in a while.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
But then every customer was in there back in the old days
Yeah.
when Matt Urka was the owner.
Yeah.
So
Then okay, you went off to Vietnam. How long were you there?
12 months and a few days.
How long did you spend total in the military?
All of it?
Yeah, total.
18 plus.
Oh, so you re-enlisted.
Well, I got out. I came home and had another 2-week leave. They sent me to Fort Hood, Texas.
Yep, been there.
That was right after the 4th of July. I had to report to Texas. And then I got out. So I spent July, August, and half of September there. And then I was discharged for college.
Okay.
And I reported straight to Michigan State from there.
Okay. And then when did you re-enlist?
Then I went back February of 1971.
Okay.
After I closed the business, I decided to go back in and make it a career. But I was medically discharged for a ruptured Achilles tendon.
Okay.
I was a drill sergeant at the time, and of course I couldn't do my job.
Right.
So they reclassify you until you're better, but then they discharge you.
Okay. So did your being in the military affect your mother and father? How did they feel?
Mother, probably a little. Dad, no.
No.
Because he was in World War II.
Oh.
And, but my mother, I think the military didn't bother her once I was out of the war. Once I got out of Vietnam and I was more or less safe to some degree.
Of course.
I think she was fine with it. Even though I wasn't around hardly, but once a year, I came home for 2 weeks a year, sometimes 3 weeks during the holidays.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was never home because I was in Europe and,
But you got to see a lot of the world.
Yes.
And it paid for college.
Yes.
Those are the 2 reasons I did it too.
Yes. Other than the Vietnam War, the experiences basically were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But the friendships I made over there
Mm-hmm.
are still good today.
Mm-hmm.
We communicate pretty much weekly. I have photos of all of them.
Yep.
We just lost one here a month ago, a good friend of mine. But yeah, we're still pretty close, all of us that were in the same platoon as I was. And good friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have a Facebook page for our unit in Greenville.
Yeah.
And then I have a friend from basic training that I still contact.
Yeah, we have the Vietnam page.
That's awesome.
For Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Cav.
Okay.
And plus I'm a life member of the 7th Cavalry.
Okay, sweet.
Which was George Custer's old outfit.
Oh.
And I was in his unit in Vietnam, which pretty impressive.
Speaking of Custer, did you train at Fort Custer? No.
No.
That was one of the things that we talked about during our Michigan history class.
Oh.
It was built for the First World War, and they used that to
Yes.
mobilize troops.
Yes, back in the day.
Yeah, and I had spent some time there for
Oh,
my
okay.
weekend drills. So
Yeah, all right.
just asking. Okay,
No.
so do you know your ethnicity?
Well, other than white Caucasian,
Yeah.
my mother, who was a Buckingham,
Mm-hmm.
obviously English. So I got a lot of that in me.
Okay, so how did they get here? I guess have you done that? You've probably done that family genealogy, right?
Oh, I did some of it. I can tell you that they arrived in 1856, settled in near Syracuse, New York. I have all the data. Came here 1874.
What brought them here?
Farming and lumber.
Okay, yep.
They were obviously born in England. The Reeder family actually is a member of the Mayflower Society.
Oh,
My history traces back to Pilgrim John Alden.
no way. Sweet.
Yes. He is our originality. I've actually been to his house up in Plymouth, out in Plymouth, whatever. 400-year-old house. Cindy and I got to go there. Went through his home. Went to the first church that was ever built. Of course, Plymouth Rock. We went there.
That would be fascinating.
It is. And you can actually buy a U.S. Constitution there with your name as one of the signees. So I did that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you did it, didn't you?
Well, yeah, because right at the bottom on the left, Frederick J. Reeder.
That's awesome.
So my name, I signed the Constitution.
Yeah.
Theoretically. But yeah, of course, then they got here.
So mom's family was English, dad's family was English. So you're a lot of English.
Yeah, pretty much all.
Yeah.
Now, my grandmother was kind of Norwegian. I had relatives up in Sweden who I went to visit actually in 1972 when I was stationed in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Sweden. And of course, my grandma was all excited. And, went there and spent a week.
So you got to meet them.
Oh.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
When you were there, where were you stationed in Europe?
I was in a city called Aschaffenburg, right on the river.
In Germany.
In Germany,
Okay.
West Germany. And then my last tour in Germany, I spent in a little city called Gelnhausen, which was just 15, 20 minutes from Frankfurt.
Okay.
So,
Which is why you know a lot about where like Elena is and stuff. Okay.
yeah, matter of fact, I just sent her a happy birthday wish the other day.
She'll be home soon.
Oh, is she?
Yeah,
When?
the 15th.
How long?
6 weeks.
That's nice.
Yeah, so you get to see her.
And then you'll have to say goodbye again.
Yeah.
Poor mom.
Yeah, it'll be all right.